You ever watch on a Saturday, maybe your team, maybe someone else's team, and think to yourself, I don't think anything's ever going to be the same again? Because it happened to me like 3 times yesterday alone. It is now Sunday, October 5th, the year of our Lord 2025. We're jam-packed, high atop a spectacular downtown Nashville, Tennessee, and yet college football carnage all over the place yesterday. Congrats if you decided to take a bye yesterday. A lot of our friends did not. It is a reaction Sunday. It was a high-impact Saturday. It was a life-changing Saturday. No hyperbole around here on this campus. Life-changing Saturday for many of you. We got all angles on that. I mean, I'm taking a deep dive on Penn State tonight. A deep dive. Not like 30 minutes. Some thought we would go 30 minutes on Penn State. No, I'm not a sadist. I'm not a savage. I'm not doing that. 25 minutes max. But we will talk about Penn State. We will talk about all the rumblings and all the, no, they're not rumblings. They're just chants. They are howls and screams around James Franklin. And what did we see yesterday? What? We're not even in the segment yesterday. Just raw reaction pouring out of me, Jesse. Can you believe that? The AP polls out. And they exposed themselves today. Our friends at the AP exposed themselves today, but not in who they put in the poll. And it's not even necessarily in who they left out. It's who they left out that was in last week that shouldn't have been where they were. A tangled web, I know. We will unpack all that. And the Ramen Noodle Express, whew. If you see your buddies wearing some new clothes at work tomorrow, someone test driving a new car in the parking lot tomorrow morning, it could be they just tailed the Ramen Noodle Express over this weekend. Pretty hot. And that's with the treachery committed by Alabama, getting the backdoor cover and screwing us on our Vanderbilt plus points, which absolutely was the right side. Yeah, we're good. Check out the Ramen Noodle Express shirt, our #1 seller. I didn't even plan that. In retrospect, it seems like a cheap plug there in the intro of the show. But yeah, Ramen Noodle Express was hot. I got best bets on the show tonight. They're watching us in Delray Beach, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, Humble, Texas. I think the H is kind of silent. I'll ask my friends from Humble. I have several. And Fairhope, Alabama. Hey, look, we are loaded tonight. I'm not going to waste any more time. I just want you to know that we are going to hit 500,000 subs before this season is over. That is our goal around here. We will never charge for this show. Anytime they mention putting the show behind a paywall, it just motivated me to take hold of the show. So now we own it. So it's never going to cost anything. Just all we ask is check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. We do this free. It's college football year-round. We don't talk an ounce of anything else. Politics, other sports, nothing. Maybe some storm chasing in the spring. That's it. All we ask is that you subscribe to the channel and the podcast. That's it. There's no follow-up. That's it. All right. And you guys have been, so I appreciate those of you who have. The 1 or 2 of you remaining out there, don't hold out. Now's the time to subscribe. I really didn't know. I had to ask Savannah State this morning, which game would you talk about first? Because I could really go about 4 different ways to lead the show off. Trust me, we'll get to all of it. Just settle in. It's going to be one of those shows. Florida beat Texas. Can you believe that? Whomst to thunk it, generated by flex power. That's what this entire segment is. But you know what needed generating? Florida. Just Florida as a team needed generating. I'd give this game 3.5 chali on a 1 to 5 scale. Very viewable, very entertaining, very much surprising to some people. Of course, by some people, I don't mean ourselves, because we picked Florida to win this game and got ridiculed for it. And this is not a receipts type of show. It's not an I told you so type of show. It is. But tonight, a little bit later, a few minutes from now, we have to have a tough conversation with our friends in Austin and the surrounding areas. However, we talk about winners on the show first. So Florida was treated like a 3-touchdown dog, left for dead in this game. And the line, I think it closed at 4.5 or 5. It was anywhere between 4.5 and 6.5 throughout the week. And I picked Florida. Look, not all things come to you very clearly, but this game came to me pretty clearly. I mean, Jesse, remember Tuesday when we were breaking the game down in our pre-show, I looked and I said, why does Florida not win this game? Jesse didn't have a good answer for me, and so we went with Florida on the show to win the game. So here's why I thought Florida would win this game, because it's exactly why they did win the game. There's a funny thing that desperation and bye weeks do to teams, especially teams that had high expectations. Florida fits that. Those parameters are met. Florida had high expectations, at least from me, and from many other people. They have failed miserably to this point. They go into the bye week. I was particularly rubbed the wrong way with how they had handled what I thought should be the strength of their team. And the strength of their team, although it could be DJ Lagway, I thought was their ground game, and I had looked so far this year, and it wasn't difficult to see. It's one thing if you don't run the ball because you can't run the ball. That hasn't been the case at Florida. So to prove to you that you're not wasting time watching this show during the week, if you only come around here Sundays, we got to have decent read on the game sometimes. So Bradley, tee it up. Here's what we said Florida needed to do to win the game Tuesday. Roll it. Frankly, I don't have much to go on. But I'm hoping some things change for Florida coming out of the bye week. They're 106th in explosive pass rate right now. I think they got to take multiple shots in this game. Is it a high percentage chance? No, it's not. But if you don't convert them, you got a no percentage chance. You got to fully commit to the run. Right now, you're sitting at 5.9 yards per carry. Jaden Ball is. And yet I watched the LSU game, and he carried it 10 times. And I watched the Miami game, and he carried it 12 times. These are not blowout games. These are very close games. And they're just not giving him the ball. I have no idea why. I think Florida's going to find a way to win the game. I'm just telling you, I don't think there's that much separation between the teams. Good call, Josh. Hey, Paper Popper, what if I told you Billy Napier watched every second of that episode, which I can't prove, but I suspect, and they gave Jaden Ball the ball more times last night or yesterday than he had in the LSU and Miami games combined, and you will never believe it, but he topped 100 yards. Now, you're not going to run the ball for 6 yards per carry on Texas. They're pretty good, contrary to recently popular belief. Texas really good defensively. But he averaged 4 yards per carry. And you know what that did? Once you proved that you'd stay committed to it, that was part one of last week's preview. Part two, the follow-up there that I alluded to is maybe that's when the explosive pass game opens up for DJ a little bit. Wouldn't you know that he had 2 passes of 50-plus yards yesterday, which matches what they had through the first 4 games of the season. I am not a play caller. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I don't even wear headsets when I do podcasts. But that's how easy the Florida offense was to figure out on the surface. That's how easy it was. I would put it another way. One of the biggest fears that Texas had to have had going into that game is, I hope they don't commit to the ground game. That'd suck. I hope they keep doing what they've been doing. Well, when you're desperate and you go into a bye, my entire thinking behind picking Florida is the last thing they're going to keep doing is what they've been doing. That hasn't given them results. Again, people who don't even watch football can understand this logic. So, rushing attempts in this game, not a padlock stat, but significant. Because if you told me Friday, Billy and them are going to run the ball 37 times, I would have been comfortable with the outcome. I had already picked Florida. I'd be comfortable with the outcome. No guarantees. But you know why I'd be comfortable? Because I do trust the personnel there. I do trust that offensive line's good enough. I certainly trust that the tailbacks, specifically the one I just referenced, are good enough. And then 7 of 14 on third down. It's just, the tumblers started falling into place. Now, I saw our buddy Will Compton, who had notably ridiculed me for the Florida pick earlier in the week. He said something along the lines of what a lot of people were thinking watching this, and that's, where's this Florida team been all year? It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Pretty much copy and pasting what you were saying about this time last year. The difference is this time last year, they had a quarterback injury which necessitated DJ Lagway being inserted as the starter, and then just mushroom cloud. Florida blows up in the best of ways down the stretch. Well, they didn't have that. I'll tell you what they do have, though. They got a quarterback that didn't participate in spring and is still pretty green when it comes to starting experience. Say all that to say this. What if, bold concept I'm going to throw out here on the show tonight, what if every team that's going to be good is not ready to be good by week 1? What am I saying about Florida? I don't know that I am saying anything about Florida. I'm just asking something. I'm just tossing it out there for the class to dissect here at Pate State. What if, and let's use Florida as an example, what if Florida was destined to play at the level that you'd be accustomed to the number 8 team in the country playing at, but they weren't going to meet that until week 6? Is that possible? Answer, of course it's possible. Is that Florida? I don't know. That's why they're going to make them play the rest of the games. And in case you haven't noticed, Florida's got a tough one. So they're right back on the road in College Station this Saturday night. But there is there is a narrative. We have to acknowledge the narrative that's been floating around, and that is when you got LLL there, if you're watching on the screen, LLL, that's 3 losses in a row, that tends to make the natives very restless. They have been at Florida. They should be at Florida. There hasn't been much patience for Billy Napier and his staff. There shouldn't be, because you've given them all the patience they needed. They haven't delivered so far this year, which led to narrative. And the overwhelming narrative around Billy Napier was, it's a foregone conclusion he's going to lose his job. I bought that last year, and then he didn't lose his job. So then we came into this year, and it started again. And I'll repeat what I've heard on the show. So last week I told you, hey, that's what I'm hearing again. It's a foregone conclusion. But then you'll notice I followed it up with, I don't know that I share that belief, because if he's still there, then he's got an opportunity to win. And the crazy thing that can happen when a team does not quit on a coach and they're really talented and take pride in their performance, like Florida does, is they can mess around and win games. So if it's a foregone conclusion he's going to be gone eventually, he needs to be gone immediately, or else you're going to screw around and let him win games again. Now, I like Billy Napier, so I hope he wins every game he coaches. It'd make me look good because I predicted him to go to the playoff. But what I'm saying is, I had a buddy text me this morning, actually like 10 of them, saying, this just prolonged the inevitable, right? And that's the general consensus, I even think amongst Florida fans. Oh, this prolonged the inevitable. I don't know that. You don't know that. We can think, we can assume, we can guess. You don't know that. How do you know it prolongs the inevitable? Or in other words, are you telling me that if he doesn't lose another game, he's still gone? Because if you can't tell me that, then it's not inevitable, because you don't know what the results are going to be. Because I'm telling you, if you didn't watch Florida yesterday and you just saw the final score, that team is still fighting for him just like they did last year. They've still got A&M, they've still got Georgia, they've still got Ole Miss, they've still got Tennessee, they've still got a lot of tough teams, but here's what that also means. They're playing a bunch of teams that are right in the thick of the SEC championship race. And before people just say they're out of the SEC championship race, no, they're not. They got one conference loss. Their losses are USF and Miami. Now, you may think the first of which was inexplicable, and I agree with you. It doesn't count against your conference record. So they're just one of a few teams with a conference loss. Now, they got a much tougher conference slate still to go, and yesterday could be a one-off. All these things are possible. But I'm not in this camp that this just prolonged the inevitable. If Billy gets fired, he gets fired. But that's not inevitable to me. If you think it's inevitable, I don't think you paid a whole lot of attention to how Scott Strickland runs an athletic department, by the way. Dallas Wilson. Whew, man. What a difference getting players back makes. Rivals top 50 player. He shined yesterday. There's still, as much as people had given up on him, and I don't blame you if you did, Florida's still one of the most dynamic teams in the country. If you just watch them yesterday, that's a one-off. But if you just watch them, that's a really dynamic athletic team. So I don't think it prolonged the inevitable. But you know what? I get the distinct impression that's not why a lot of people tuned in tonight. I think a lot of people tuned in because Texas lost. Shame on you people. Come on now. Oh, no. No shame on you. No shame on you at all. You know what they did to me last week. I appreciate some of you for defending my good honor on the internet, but I need to fight this battle. Battle's over. We won. But I still need to walk across the battlefield, and I see some movement still, and so we need to take care of that. In case you didn't notice last week, most people picked Texas to win the game. Okay. I picked Florida to win the game. Okay. This sort of thing happens all the time. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. Immunity. But just me and Texas here, I think we need to have a little talk, because some of you have completely lost touch with your own team. Some of you have lost the ability to see your own team. And instead of admitting, I don't have a good feel for my own team, you've backed into a corner, like a raccoon, and you've been, or to use a metaphor that Meemaw would probably understand, you've chased the raccoon up the tree, and it is not happy. And at that point, if you've ever chased a raccoon up a tree, the raccoon is not up there thinking logically. It's in survival mode. It does not want to debate you. It does not want to chase logic or talk with you in reasoned terms. It's on edge. Hair's standing up, it's on edge. That was Texas fandom last week. So I commit the crime of picking Florida to win the game, which ended up being the right side. And for that crime, I was called, among other things, out of pocket. You know, you can't just disagree with someone. You can't have a difference of opinion anymore. If someone differs in opinion with you, it's because they're out of pocket. I am a sellout. You know who you are. Cringy. Takes have become cringy. I got a clickbait Pate dropped on me again, a term that I should have trademarked a long time ago. I was called a Texas hater, I think, every hour on the hour for the rest of the week. I was called an Aggie. I was called some things that rhyme with Aggie. I was called a Tex Ags bootlicker. And these people didn't show up today for, again, my crime of accurately predicting a Texas loss. How did no one else see this? How did you not see this? Arch Manning took 6 more sacks. He had 2 more picks. He was 55%, and I don't even throw it in his lap. He doesn't have any time to work. His offensive line's just not good right now. Their job there is to develop and coach them up and eventually get them to be at least somewhat competitive. But the thing that I keep going back to is they didn't get aggressive in the portal on the offensive line. And I assumed it was because they were very comfortable with who they had on the offensive line. And I think that was right, and I think they were wrong so far this year. He was also their leading rusher. Their tailbacks had 9 rushes for 11 yards yesterday. This is not new, is the point. Like, everyone started to run their mouth because they beat Sam Houston, who got smoked Friday night by, I can't remember which high school it was, but they got smoked Friday night. Texas hadn't fixed anything. The bye week didn't fix anything. Calling it out doesn't make you a hater. It just makes you a truth teller. Now, if you're allergic to the truth, then that doesn't make the dude telling the truth the bad guy. That doesn't cast aspersions his way. It casts aspersions your way. You guys know how rarely I use that term, aspersions. So now they go into the Red River Shootout and they're favored against Oklahoma. I knew that was going to throw people for a loop because I knew they were going to be favored. A lot of you are thinking, oh, that's because Mateer is out. No, that's not what that point spread means. That's not what that means. That's actually, I think, assuming he may play. I think that may be baked into that number. No, Texas is just power rated above Oklahoma still in the minds of some odds makers. If you disagree, you can go to FanDuel and bet it. But now the talk starts with them. Now the talk starts with Texas. This was a preseason number 1. They were favorites to win the SEC. They were right up there with favorites to win the national championship. And now they're a 2-loss team before the Red River Shootout. And somebody out there in August presented the scenario, what if an undefeated Oklahoma faces a 3-2 Texas in the Red River Shootout? And I'll let you guess who that was and what the comments were like under that video. Anyway, here we are. So now that we've beaten Texas down, I want to tell you they're not dead. Texas is not dead at all. Texas could do the exact same thing Florida just did. And that is continue to put the keys in the ignition and have it not turn over and have it not turn over and have it not turn over, and all of a sudden it turns over. It just, you wish it would have turned over immediately out of the garage in week 1, and instead it took until when? Maybe Oklahoma. It's no guarantee. They could suck Saturday. They could be 38-10, or it could turn over. I will say I never give up on buildings with that much talent in there. I never give up on buildings with that good a coaching staff in there. Now, about that coaching staff, they are realizing they got to squeeze the sponge a lot harder than they expected to have to squeeze the sponge. There's still enough water in there. It's just that at Texas, you recruit and you portal at such a level where you're used to about 8 or 9 times out of the year showing up and your helmet being good enough to win. That's not the mentality, but you know in the back of your mind you can bring your C-plus game in many of these Saturdays and you're going to win. Or maybe not. So what they're finding is they just got to squeeze the sponge harder. They're not the only ones finding that out right now. The whole new era of college football is showing that to a lot of people. But I just want to say, good on Florida. Good on them. There were a lot of folks who were really mouthy last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that are ghosts today. I still hadn't seen the Longhorn Lambo guy. The reason I know that he means what he says is because he has a car in his profile picture. Where's he? Anyway, It's not that I hold grudges. I don't know why anyone would ever think that. Just because I remember the names of individual Twitter profiles? Absolutely not. Guys, all joking aside, it was a tough week to be picking Florida last week. So I'm not rooting, but I did do a little fist bump when I saw that Florida pulled that out yesterday. Now it's up to me to convince people that Texas is not dead, and that is 48 hours before we have to pick the OU-Texas game Tuesday. Quick Trip can get you there. They fuel the Fall Don't Lie tour. We were down in Tallahassee last night, and that was a good one. That was a really good trip. We hadn't been down there for a game in a long time. Would go back. Absolutely would go back. But that begs the question, of course. There's a really interesting slate this week of games. Where do we go? Where do we go? Now, you should know. Yeah, you should know that there's some things in Nashville that I need to attend to Saturday night, early Sunday morning, which has impacted our decision-making here. But there are a lot of good games to choose from this week. So I'm going to choose a place where the last time we went, there was a field storming. There was a walk-off field goal, and there was a field storming. I'm going to choose a place that I have badly wanted to get back to ever since. That place is Columbia, Missouri. We are going to visit Eli Drinkwitz and friends. Alabama in town this Saturday. 3.5-point home dog there. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, and it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. And I haven't spoken for quite a while about my affinity, my love for early kickoffs, but it's time to revisit that because we love them. So we're going to be there, and we are looking forward to it. And then the rest of the slate that day is loaded too. This could have been Indiana at Oregon. I think we're going to see Oregon a couple of times later in the year. That factored into the decision there. Also, obligations later in the day factored into the decision here. So several good choices, several right choices, but via Quick Trip. We will be in Columbia, Missouri Saturday. Looking forward to it. There's nothing wrong with your audio. I just saw the piece of paper that popped up in front of me. Bradley, you mind if I take a sip of water? I'm going to take a sip of water. We're about to talk Penn State, just if everyone wants to settle into their chairs. Okay, so we have some breaking news on the show, and I'm going to need to find it for myself, so if you'll just hold on a second. We've been waiting for this all day. Let's see. As of 20 minutes ago, the James Franklin game week tweet has come out. Game week, let's do this together and go 1-0, Nittany Nation, Northwestern. It's just tradition. He does it every week. There were some people wondering if he was going to do it this week, and he has. Travel set him back a little bit today, but he has tweeted it out. All right. Boy, oh boy. I have never been asked about a segment more than this one throughout a Sunday. UCLA beat Penn State in what I would call easily the most stunning outcome of the season so far. And in terms of Penn State football, the most stunning outcome I remember maybe in my lifetime. I don't really know. I can't remember what happened when I was 8 years old. I will give it credit. This was the most out-of-nowhere 4.5 Chalai game I've ever seen. A lot of my former colleagues, the esteemed Jennifer Dell included, were working this game, and candidly, I don't think they really expected what they got. That's why you play the games, though. That's why God has us play the games. We got to honor the rule around here. The rule is we talk winners first. I'm just telling you, flat out, respectfully to UCLA, 98% of this is going to be about Penn State. But you deserve the spotlight. UCLA was there to play dead. That's what their job was. Their role, even according to me last week, their role was to just make sure the lights are on in the stadium, make sure you unlock the locker rooms, and make sure you show up on time. But this is Penn State's get-right spot. This was the medicine they needed, and they got poisoned. Penn State got poisoned. Nobody told UCLA. Nobody told them what the role was. So they had the audacity to show up and compete. Yeah, it'll take you a long way. It really will. Nico Iamaleava ends up playing the game we all waited for him to play at Tennessee. Just unbelievable effort yesterday. Nico's taken a fair amount of criticism. I've been critical of him. But I will tell you, Nico Iamaleava played out of his mind yesterday. Just all things considered. I mean, think about what was expected versus what you ended up getting. Think about how inexplicable Jim Knowles and Penn State played him. But that's only part one. You still got to take advantage of it. And he took advantage of it. And I will tell you one thing in the Big Ten that's been a hallmark for a long time is the middle to lower tier teams in the Big Ten never have dynamic quarterbacks. It's one of the big differences you notice about the Big Ten and the SEC. When you play like that bottom half of the Big Ten, they never have dynamic quarterbacks. In the SEC, Mississippi State can randomly have a future first round draft pick at quarterback. Just mentioning them generically, like Arkansas, Kentucky, like randomly they can just have one. What you saw yesterday is you saw a very bad UCLA team that just happens to have a 7-figure per year quarterback who came from Tennessee, and we all remember that story. So unbelievable. Okay, congrats. I mean, I'm going to talk about UCLA a little more at the end. Not a golf clap, just a full-throated clap for you. This is about Penn State. Here's where my head was at yesterday. I was getting to see bits and pieces of this game live. We were headed into Doak Campbell Stadium at Florida State. And so, you know, first off, you got to check and see if your app's working right. This is one of those games. It happens about 2 or 3 times a year. There's a score that starts coming in that's so shocking, so jarring, you think to yourself, oh, the app's messed up. It means Penn State's up 27-7. And then you look and you go to like another website, and they all say the same thing. Then you ask your buddy, hey, you got a score on this? YouTube TV, you got it pulled up? Well, there it is in living color. Yeah, oh, wow, that's the real score. So I was in complete and utter disbelief at witnessing this. I don't remember every Penn State game I've ever watched. I just remember none of them have ever hit me in the face like this. 285-92, I think was the yardage edge at the half. So I will tell you a first that happened today. We do the Sarah McLachlan special every week. Hold on just a second, Prez. We do the Sarah McLachlan special every week. I have never had members of a fan base collectively demand that I make their team the Sarah McLachlan special until today. It's almost like the fan base has resigned and they want someone to hurt other than them. I know that's Jesse's attitude. He's been moping around here all day. So, ladies and gentlemen, where else do we go but State College, Pennsylvania, by way of Pasadena, California? Penn State is the Sarah McLachlan special. They were 24.5-point favorites entering the game, and they were down 20 at the half. James Franklin, Jim Knowles, Andy Kotelnicki, making a combined $47 billion per year, got beat by a first-time ever 33-year-old play caller who, I kid you not, admitted he didn't even know how to work the headset during the game, and a coach making his P4 debut. UCLA is so horrible. They entered the game 0-4 this season. They lost 2 games to the G5. They got beat by New Mexico 35-10. And they scored on the first 5 drives. They put up 42 on Jim Knowles. They went 6 for 6 in the red zone. They ran it for 270. They punted once in the first quarter, Josh, the entire game against Penn State. They punted once. They had a 19-minute edge in time of possession. They went 10 of 16 on third down. They went from having not held the lead this entire season to never trailing in this game. Katron Allen, just mind-boggling. Averaging 6 yards a touch, had 2 touchdowns yesterday, 9 carries in the game. I don't even know how to explain it. I have no idea. Penn State is the first top 10 team to lose to an 0-4 team or worse since 1985. And when reached for comment, producer Jesse, the most loyal Penn State alum/fan that I have ever met, was quoted as saying, "I'm out." And then he walked out of the room. The Sarah McLachlan special, the easiest one of the year. Penn State implodes at the hands of UCLA. Clemson and Penn State somehow returned everything that you think a team needs to compete at the highest levels, and they regressed. And I always caution on the show about not getting carried away with returning starters, returning production. But returning production is kind of important, and they had a lot of it. And then the production they didn't have, like at wide receiver, they went and got via the portal, and they're just worse. And there's several theories out there as to how, but you remember what I said last week, because I really meant it. I wouldn't say stuff like this if I wasn't intentional about it. I told you after the Oregon game, I'm not prone to flying off the handle and knee-jerk reactions and hyperbole after one loss. The Oregon game was not one game. And I'm not sure outsiders really understood that as much as people close to Penn State did. The Oregon game was a referendum game. The Oregon game wasn't even like a report card or a midterm. It was kind of a final exam in a sense that if you failed the final exam, it was kind of done. Anything thereafter didn't matter. Now, what I underestimated was how immediately the team would reflect that. I expected the fan base to reflect it immediately, and they did. Like a lot of them said, that's it. This was the one. We can't get it done against them. We'll never get it done under this guy. I'm out. A lot of them said that last week. I've never seen Penn State's team say that. I've never seen collectively the energy given off by the organization say that until yesterday. And I just underestimated how immediate it would be. Landon Tangwell, who, by the way, does a great job kind of covering Penn State, covers a little beyond Penn State in the Big Ten. I highly recommend you give him a follow. But I saw him say this last night. He said, after Oregon's win over Penn State, Josh Pate said he thought the loss marked a new trajectory for Penn State football, but he wasn't sure if it was positive or negative. Well, you got your answer quickly. He's right. He's right. I spoke about timelines a lot last week. And just to remind people, in case you missed last week's show, remember we're at that point 24 hours on the heels of Oregon beating Penn State. Penn State folks are distraught at this point, not even knowing what was coming down the road, but they were distraught at this point. And I didn't lean away from it. I leaned into it. And here's what we said about the timeline and how the Oregon loss changed everything on last week's show. I think last night's result began a new timeline for Penn State football, and I have no idea which one it is. Because it could be that it began a trajectory that ends with James Franklin not at Penn State anymore in like 3 years or something like that. And I'm not saying fired. I don't even know how it would happen. I'm speaking hypothetically. I'm just saying I could envision 3 years from now, Franklin's not there anymore, and the conversation is, this really began with that Oregon game a few years back. Nothing was ever the same after that. It could be that, but I'll tell you what else it could be. It could be that James Franklin looks himself in the mirror and says exactly what I just said. That was as good as it's going to get with my current way of doing things here. Last night was the end of James Franklin's Penn State 1.0, and tomorrow begins James Franklin Penn State 2.0. Well, here we are in the 2.0 era. Look, I don't know how they get it back. There are no guardrails here. They're sort of off the cliff now. We've never been here before. So the entire time James Franklin's been at Penn State, there have been a lot of big games they've been in and they've lost. And up until about 5 minutes ago, I always went back and forth on the show with a lot of viewers, even some Penn State fans, because they kept getting close and they kept just bumping their head against the wall instead of breaking the wall down. And then people would yell, oh, James Franklin's overrated. And I would say, no, he's not. No one rates him top 5, but they rate him in the 5 to 10 range, which is exactly where a guy should be who beats everyone in the 10 to 20 range, but falls against the teams and coaches that tend to be in the 1 to 5 range. And I was okay with that because that's a really easy team to figure out. That's a really easy coach to figure out. And I'll defend him. If people say he's overrated, I'll defend him because he's winning the games that, odds makers kind of indicate he's supposed to win, and he's losing the ones they say he's supposed to lose. But those were the guardrails, and the guardrails are gone now. In Tennessee and in rural Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, they have a lot of mountainous terrain. And so sometimes, like if you've ever flown into Harrisburg and you try to drive to State College, it's not like landing in Wichita and driving to Kansas City or vice versa. That's a straight shot. And you can see 6 miles in any direction. Sometimes you can't see 60 feet in any direction when you're driving through hills. But you feel a little sense of comfort because they're guardrails. So that even if worst case scenario happens and some guy sideswipes you or you have a blowout, the car's going to hit the guardrail. That's been Penn State football for a long time. I have felt such at ease that even at the worst, we're not really getting that far off the road. There are no guardrails anymore. Guardrails are gone. That's what I meant when I said the Oregon game was a point of no return for the James Franklin 1.0 way of doing things. There's no going back to the way it was. So now, when you look at the fact that they still got to play Indiana and they still got to play Nebraska and they got to go to Iowa, they go to Ohio State, they go to Michigan State, they will lose one or more of those games, and there's no limit to how bad it could be. You thought the floor on this team may be 9-3. I heard many people say in the preseason, this is the most slam dunk playoff team there is. They're not going to go to the playoff. They will not go to the playoff. In fact, they may be closer to flirting with 7 or 8 wins than they are 9 or 10 wins. And so, for the first time in a decade, which is about how long he's been there, total unfamiliar territory. And I don't really know how to process it. And I know a lot of you don't know how to process it. But here's the difference. Okay, so when I said what I said, here's what I expected to happen. I expected there to still be guardrails. I expected that there was a worst-case scenario that, of course, included a loss to Ohio State. And who knows, maybe even one more. And that's 8-4. But then James gets to the end of the season and makes a lot of changes that he knows he needs to make. And he course corrects and he defines a little different way they're going to do this, this, and that. But you can't do that in the season. Well, the problem with making decisions as a head coach, which you get paid a lot of money to do, is once you make them, you've made them. You don't get to make new choices on your staff. You don't get to change your recruiting philosophy. You don't get to portal in new players in week 7. You're stuck with what you're stuck with. And it's no different than if you're driving somewhere and you miss an exit and you're on the interstate. You know you missed the exit, but the GPS says the next chance you have to turn around is 3.5 miles down the road. Imagine someone's in the back seat and they keep kicking you in the back saying, you're going the wrong way. Hey, we missed our exit. You're going the wrong way. Hey, where are we going? We're supposed to be back there. Well, you know that. You know that. The difference is they just get to keep saying that. Even though you know good and well, you already know what they're saying before they say it, but you can't fix it. You can't fix it because you got 3.5 miles to go. James Franklin can't fix a lot of this because he's got an entire season left to go. And that's even if he plans on fixing anything, was my point. I don't know because I can't get in his head. I don't know if he even sees fit to fix anything. I just know they missed the exit on this season. They totally missed it. And now the question that a lot of people are asking is, should they fire him? I have no clue how you even do that. It's $56 million to pay if you want to fire him, first off. I don't even wade into those waters. That's not my money. So I'm not sitting here telling anyone else how to spend it. And I know even if we were to look at James Franklin through the harshest of lenses, if you apply the logic lens on there, you do still have to bake in the opportunity for him to just have a down year. I'm not holding him to a different standard than I'm holding a lot of other coaches at high-level programs too, because I've said that about some coaches at other high-level programs. But okay, let's just say that's unacceptable to you because it's your program. It's not my program. So if it's unacceptable to you, what's going to happen to him's up to him. I mean, be real now. You're not paying $56 million to buy him out. Now, if we get to the end of the season and something happens where a mutually agreed upon reduced buyout is negotiated, I don't know why he would do that, but maybe he does. Okay, well, that could change the calculus. If he were to take another job, of course, that changes the calculus. Follow-up question is, which job would it be? Frankly, I think there could have been some in play up until this weekend that aren't in play anymore. So I don't even know what would be on the radar there. I just know that there's still, in the back corner of my mind, actually in the front of my mind, there's a whole part of me that loves James Franklin. He's been great to us, so I root for him. But he knows all this is true. Can't fight it. The one thing I wonder is, and you're not going to get this out of him probably ever, and you especially wouldn't get it out of him in the middle of the season. I wonder if he looks at anything and unequivocally says, that I will change. once I get to the end of the year. This person will not be here anymore once I get to the end of the year. That we cannot know. That we cannot know. But I will tell you one thing. There's still a long way to go in that season. And those are a lot of players and a lot of coaches who returned, in many cases, with one goal in mind. And that goal's probably out the window. Mathematically, they're not eliminated. But just looking at the quality of play and knowing there's not a whole lot of mystery about this team. It's not like this team's going to improve 30% in this compartment or this category. You kind of got what you got. They're probably going to lose more games. There's just a lot of things I'm worried about with Penn State football, product on the field that I've never worried about before. But I will tell you, if you were agnostic to this game, if you didn't have a rooting interest, if you just kind of were watching, if you were watching that CBS feed, something happened in it that I didn't know about because I wasn't able to watch it live. So I went back and watched a lot of the games this morning, and sometimes I'll watch all 22 copies. Sometimes I'll watch broadcast copy. I chose to watch the broadcast copy of this game because I wanted to know how it felt. I also love, for games that are upsets, I don't just want to watch the plays. I want to feel, when did it start to set in? Like, when did the vibe, when did the mood start to shift? When did the broadcast team go from, oh, here we are because we're supposed to be here, to, oh, wow, underdog got out of the gate kind of hot today, to this could actually happen. Well, it happened pretty quick in this game. But the most awesome thing I saw was I was texting back and forth with Adam Zucker because he is in studio for the Big Ten on CBS during the game. You see him, they toss to and fro from the studio in New York. And I've gone up there and worked with those guys when I was at CBS several times. And I've worked with Rick Neuheisel several times. I've been in studio when we're watching games that we're going to do reports on at halftime. Like, they're going to come to us for studio coverage. And so I've sat next to Rick Neuheisel several times, and we're just watching games on the desk. Brian Jones over there, we're just watching games on the desk because we're going to be the halftime for the game. So I've already known the vibe that he gives off and what it's like watching a game with him. All I ever did when I went to New York was I had Rick sit there and tell me UCLA stories and Washington stories and USFL stories and watch games with him. Awesome. You just keep your mouth shut. You're like a sponge. You learn a whole lot. Okay, so the situation at UCLA this week was head coach is gone, so you've got an interim head coach, Tim Skipper. Then they let go of the offensive coordinator, and they elevated Jerry Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel's son, to offensive coordinator. And Rick is doing studio coverage for the pre-halftime and post of the game that Jerry is now the offensive coordinator in. And it didn't dawn on me till this morning. I thought, wait, that was the CBS game, which means Rick must have been in New York, which means he was watching his own son be the offensive coordinator for the game. And then I texted Zucker, and he said, oh, buddy. And he just started firing off videos to me. And some of you saw this. A lot of you saw this. If you didn't see this yesterday, this is unbelievable. I've had this vantage point, just never watching Rick watch his own son coach. This was Neuheisel in studios yesterday. Roll it, Bradley.
Let that clock keep going. Beautiful friggin' job here, son. Go! Score! Score! Boom! Go for two. Go for two. Go for two. Come on, baby. This kid is friggin' really good.
Iamaliava, huh?
Oh, this Iamaliava.
Did Rick Neuheisel have the slightest clue that Nico Iamaliava was going to bring that kind of joy to his life a few months ago when all that portal drama was going on? Just goes to show you, once you think you've got college football figured out, it confuses you all over again. But I watched that like 50 times this morning. That was unbelievable. Guys, I got nothing good to tell you at Penn State. I wish I did. Jesse was curled up in the fetal position when I got into work today. And honestly, he worked out of that posture most of the day. It's a miracle we even got the show put together. It's bad. It's bad. Was it Sister Hazel had that song Long Winter? Give me a long winter, man. Sorry. I would recommend you guys adopt a team. Just adopt it. Some people adopt a mile on the highway to clean up litter. Adopt the team, or else your minds are going to go to places you really don't want it to go. Guys, you have got one of the highest paid coaching staffs in the country, and they had a staff that, truth be told, needed the game to kick off at 12:30 Pacific because they needed to get to a second job at Kroger later that night. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And if someone tells you it wasn't that bad, they're lying. It was bad. It's the worst thing I've seen. It was Bama Vandy last year, except that was a first-year staff. This staff has been there in many cases for a decade. Like, they are what they are at this point. It was bad. Franklin, Tennessee is tuned in. Prescott, Arizona is tuned in. Battle Creek, Michigan, home of Rob Van Dam, is tuned in, and I appreciate you guys. And I just ask, if you haven't already, check if you're subscribed. Because like 52% of you who watch the show are not subscribed, and it's free, and it doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us. And I don't need your help right now. Jesse really does. He really could use a pick-me-up. So if you just rage watch me, and you would never help me to save your life, help Jesse. Please help. That's where we need the Sarah McLachlan music. Help Jesse. Okay, let's move on. Jesse, you remember that Kevin Denny song, That's Just Jesse? Underrated country song from the 90s. I haven't played it for him in a while. I may play it for him. I may play it for him a little bit later tonight. We learned that Derek Rutten watches the show last week, so maybe Kevin Denny's watching the show. Miami beat Florida State 29-22 at the game I was at. This was fueled by Quick Trip. That's how we got down there. That's how we got back. It was a two-chally game, though, that was masquerading as a one-possession game. If you look at the final there, Miami was favored by 4.5. They won by 6. That tracks. So we got about the game we expected, right? No, we did not. There's no team in the country that looks like Miami, guys. Now, that stadium was unbelievable. That's us showing up. Amazing. I mean, in terms of in-game tradition, I don't really think that Joe Campbell and Florida State take a back seat. If you've never been down there, just please make a trip down there at least once. Get you a good night game, preferably with Miami in town. Unbelievable. But as for the game itself, standing field level, because I hadn't seen Miami in person this year in a game, they're a different team than anyone. I have seen Ohio State and Texas in person this year. I have seen Bama in person. I've seen Georgia in person. I've seen Michigan in person. There is no team that looks like Miami. There is no team that big and that fast and that physical and that aggressive as Miami. Nowhere. I don't know if they'll win their conference. I don't know if they'll win their national championship. I don't know what they'll win. I just know they won yesterday, and I know they have what I would affectionately refer to as creatures all over the place. And there were a lot of times last night, if you watched Florida State, you watched Tommy Castellanos specifically, Tommy Castellanos knows his athletic profile. He knows what he's capable of. The way you can always tell a guy's on the field with a different caliber of athlete is when they do things comfortably because they think they have time to do them, and then they just, boom, space closes, ground closes, and they're almost shocked. They're like, wait a second. I thought I had room. I thought I had space. I thought I had an angle. You do 11 other Saturdays of the year. You just didn't. You just didn't hear, man. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. They were created in a different lab than you. I don't know what else to say. So it was a weird game because Miami, it felt like they dominated, and then the box score says, so did my eyeballs lie? Does the box score lie? Because best I can tell, we ended the third quarter, Miami's up 28-3. And yet they got outgained in the game. They got outrushed. Third and fourth down, edge Florida State. The turnover game went the other way. And that's a lot of what decided this. Miami had 13 penalties for 114 yards. So the box score is lying. We should just throw it in the trash. The box score lied here. It's hard. I'll tell you one thing I picked up on is Miami got to a certain spot. Their fan base will tell you this, and they thought they throttled back. And they did because they knew they had the game in hand. Then it got a little too close for comfort late, and you try and crank the car back up, and you realize, it needs a little while. I mean, Shannon Dawson's sitting there. calling a good game. They're not running the ball worth anything because Florida State's dictating with numbers that they're not going to let them. So they're throwing the ball. Carson Beck's 20 of 27, 241 through the air, 4 touchdowns. Malachi Toney is going off. C.J. Daniels is going off. And then they don't need to anymore. And Shannon Dawson, you know, he can back off the accelerator a little bit. Some would call that going conservative. They would call it, taking the game out of the doubt column and into the win column. And then all of a sudden, it's not in the win column. Or maybe it's not. And you try and crank it back up, and it's hard to crank it back up. It turns out they didn't need it. So Miami wins it. Malachi Toney's a freak. Like, not since, what was that movie? Oh, not since Rachel Lee Cook took those glasses off and She's All That has someone so emphatically announced their arrival to the world as Malachi Toney has so far this year. Just incredible. 7 catches last night, 107, 2 scores. C.J. Daniels, 578, 2 scores. You remember when A&M went up to Notre Dame and they won a shootout. And then A&M came home and they won a slugfest against Auburn. I think that about Miami. I thought they're versatile enough. We call those toolbox teams, meaning they got enough tools in the toolbox to solve any problem. You need to score 45? I can score 45. You need to hold someone to under 13? I can hold someone to under 13. Miami feels like that kind of team. The difference is A&M had already had to prove it, and Miami still really hadn't had to win a shootout, but man, they've emphatically proved that they got one half, and I do think they have the other half if and when they need it. Hadn't seen them on the road yet? Okay, we've seen them on the road now. So Miami is a dangerous team. I'll talk more about them in a second because that doesn't guarantee anything. A lot of people are making irresponsible predictions about Miami right now. There's no guarantees here. There's no guarantees. Ohio State won the whole thing last year, and they're playing lights out. There's no guarantees for them. Miami hadn't won anything yet, so there's especially no guarantee for them. This is all new for them, at least this version of Miami. More on them in a second. Florida State's at a crossroads right now. It's been a wild first month and a half. When you beat Bama, and I tell you, you're still going to be a 2-loss team by the time you play Pitt. You're like, what? Yeah, I would have been too. So we have terms. We try and have as much unique language on the show as possible. One of them that we use every now and then is townhouse teams. Townhouse teams, if you understand the shape of a townhouse, and trust me, I didn't growing up, because that's Harris County, Georgia. Not many townhouses. Outhouses, yes. Townhouses, no. Townhouses, though, are very tall. There's a high ceiling, there's a low floor. And that is kind of how Florida State profiles. And you saw the roof in week 1 against Alabama. You saw, if not the floor, pretty close to it against Virginia. And yesterday, Miami's tough, man. They're going to embarrass a lot of people probably this year. But you saw Tommy Castellano's total wild card. It's either 10 or it's trash. He's not trash. The result can be. There's very little in between with Tommy Castellanos. And 3 of their 5 games now, he's been their leading rusher. And so there's just a disproportionate amount of the workload that's on him. And he's not a great player. He has ceiling. He has peaks where he can touch greatness very, very briefly. But consistently, he's not going to be that. And, I mean, their longest pass play was 30 yards yesterday. And that was really their shot. And that's Malzahn's shot of sucking you in with that ground game, attacking you on the perimeter, which, by the way, it was huge. Miami held them to 3 on that opening drive. Because once you get to sink your teeth in, I mean, we've seen Saban do it to him. We've seen Kirby do it to him when he was at Auburn. And now we saw Corey Heatherman do it to him. Once you get them figured out, now that's why it's important for Malzahn offenses to strike early. So they had 1 pass play, 30 yards, I think it was. Miami had 4 of 40-plus. And that was another very important aspect of this game that Miami won. So, look, seasons are very long. Very long. And that's why early in the year, when a team looks as good as Miami does, I'm always careful. Just like when Florida State looked like they did week 1. I mean, half the folks out there were still convinced Florida State was terrible. No, they weren't terrible. We knew that after week 1. But there's this thought that, all right, what we saw in week 1, since we have no other sample size, or we have no other sample in the size because it's 1 game, that's all we have to go on. So we'll just assume that you are what we saw in week 1. That's how people lose a lot of money betting on week 2, by the way. Both ways. Terrible teams, great teams. You don't have that yet. You got one You got one little dot in the cluster so far. So now we got a few more for each team. And Miami is about as good a body of work as anyone right now. But Miami's biggest threat's Miami. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, like other teams couldn't beat them. But I do think they're better than every other team they're going to play. But that's if they're fully healthy, which they are right now. There's no guarantee they will be. So that's part one of the unknown. Part two of the unknown is you got a bunch of guys there that haven't tasted high-end success. Now, that makes them hungry, but it also makes you prone to complacency if you're not careful. And the third part, which I'll continue to say is the most dangerous part for Miami, Bradley, do me a favor, throw their schedule back up. There are a lot of teams out there that play a really difficult schedule. And they're going to face teams that are their equal, talent-wise. Miami's not. The rest of the way, if Miami loses, it will be a fairly big upset, and they will have lost to an inferior roster. That sounds like a good thing. Oh, it is a good thing. It means you got a really navigable path. Here's what could be the bad part, and this is Miami controls this. You either stay razor sharp and hold yourself to a standard every week, despite the fact that you don't really need to win that week, or you let yourself slip a little bit. Because I'm going to be completely straight with you guys. When Stanford comes to town on October 25th, Miami's C-plus effort is plenty good enough to win that. How do you carry yourself that week? Do you carry yourself at an A-plus standard no matter the opponent on Saturday? Or do you let human nature habits creep in? No, and it won't matter. Because it won't matter. Against Stanford, it won't matter. But against Oregon in the second round of the playoff, it will matter. And if bad habits crept in and got crystallized during that stretch where you're favored by double digits every weekend because you weren't mature enough to handle your business and hold yourself to a standard, that's what can bite Miami. And you won't really know it until it comes time for them to play in a championship situation in Charlotte or in the playoff. They will be a playoff team. I got no doubt about that. What do they do when they get there? I watched Oregon lock down the 1 seed and get smoked in round 1 last year. So I don't frankly care what happens in the regular season. Once we get, that's a whole second season. And once we get there, which they don't need to be thinking about right now, it's a whole second season. What kind of habits have you allowed to creep in? That's literally my biggest concern with Miami right now. That and just health, which I worry about for everyone. Appreciate Flex Power, man. It's been an awesome experience for a couple of weeks now that they've come on board. You can go to myflexpower.com because I walked through Tallahassee, Florida yesterday, and there were generators everywhere. And I know if you go tailgating, unless you're mooching, which I got no problem with, if someone invited you over there, go for it. But if you're setting up your own tailgate situation, myflexpower.com/Josh Pate, if you want them to know that you came via this show, you're going to have to buy it anyway. Get the best. 3300i model, preferably. Get the best. If you need to power your pitching machine, if you need to inflate a bouncy castle, all things that we've found ourselves doing once or twice in our life, just make sure you, if you need it anyway, make sure you go to Flex Power. They're a big-time partner of ours. They watched the show long before they ever became a partner, which is an ideal partner. So we appreciate them, and I appreciate you guys. Let's roll on. Still a lot to talk about. Where are we at? We're an hour in. There's not a ton left. It's just there's a whole lot of meat on the bone. The over-under was an hour 43. And I'm not Ryan Grubb calling plays for Alabama right now. Okay, I'm not paying attention to the spread as I get close to the end of the show. I'm mad because he cost me money. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the game. Alabama 30, Vanderbilt 14. What would we rate this? I'd rate it a solid 3 chali out of 5. I would hear 3.5. Not quite 4, but I would hear 3 to 3.5. There was never going to be an overlook factor here. Alabama was never going to overlook Vanderbilt. Okay, I told the story a little bit, but now I'll tell you. When they walked off the field against Georgia, a lot of times the winning team, if I know the travel staff and the coaching staff well enough, I'll go to that locker room. So I know Alabama pretty well. So I was over there. I was in there. I was around the team. They were talking about Vanderbilt before they left the building. They were talking about Vanderbilt as they were still loading buses at Sanford Stadium. I had no doubt that they had 100% focus on Vandy. But Vandy's a good team. So they can still compete in this game because they're a very good team, even if they do have your full focus. There's no smoke and mirrors. They're just a good team. So the way I saw this game, and the reason I picked Bama to win, but I thought it would be very competitive, is because Vandy dominated 3 categories in last year's game. They dominated time of possession, they dominated turnovers, and they dominated third down. Penalties also bit Bama in the game last year. Bama won time of possession 37 minutes plus to 22 minutes plus yesterday. They won the turnover battle 3-1. They won third down. They had an edge there. And penalties, they had 3 for 20. Second straight game now. They've been penalized less than their opponent. It's a big deal. That's why they won the game. So they are lethal in the red zone right now. That to me, if you want to pop a paper on this game, that was kind of it. Bama was 5 of 5 for 23 points in the red zone, and Vandy was 1 of 3 with 2 turnovers down there. And that was where the game was decided, because the game script itself would have thrown me for a loop. If you told me the way this thing was going to start Friday, if you just gave me a little preview, I would have said Bama's screwed. I watched the first quarter of this game live. I've since gone back and watched it like twice, but I was able to watch the first quarter live, and basically it felt like the 5th quarter of the 2024 game. It just felt like they continued playing the 2024 game, because Vandy breaks that long touchdown run, and I'm thinking, you better settle in, because it looks a whole lot like that game looked for 4 quarters last year. Like, if this stuff's happening early, it's going to happen often. I was of the opinion that if you show me the first quarter of this game, I'll have a really good read how it'll turn out. Well, that wasn't the case. That just was not the case. So I looked at our buddies at College Football Nerds. They said something earlier today that I totally get. They said, it feels like Alabama gives up twice as many points as they actually do. A lot of Bama fans feel that way. And that's because you're spoiled. Because Bama fans got used to watching Jonathan Allen and A'Shawn Robinson, and who do they have behind them? Jaron Reed. Some kid named Quinnen Williams is there. You ever heard of Christian Barmore? I don't know. He'll probably start in 2 years. You just don't have those guys anymore. I don't really think anyone does. And so you used to just be able to suffocate people. Well, that's not the way that you're going to play defense. That's not the way that you're even going to pretend to be able to play defense anymore. And sometimes people really overthink the room. I'll tell you what the most important defensive stat is. How many points is the other guy scoring right now? How many points does the other guy have on the board? Because if it's 14, you're probably doing okay. And that's what Vandy ended up scoring yesterday. It's just they got 7 on the board early, and they're moving the ball down in the red zone a couple of more times, and you're like, oh, here we go again. But they're not scoring. They're not scoring, so it's okay. It's okay. After the first quarter of this game, Vandy had 172 yards the rest of the way. They had 7 points the rest of the way. Bama outscored them 30-7 after the first quarter. And yet you're looking and you're saying, oh, come on, Kane. Oh, come on, a red zone trip again? Yeah, but we turned the ball over. Okay, I guess that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's just a style this defense plays with. So it's not going to look like 85 Bears or 2015 Alabama. It's not going to look like that. They don't have those kinds of players. They got plenty good enough players. They just got to execute a little different kind of plan. If there's a little more bending, as long as there's not a whole lot of breaking, and the same kind of point totals end up on the board, it's okay, guys. It's going to be okay. It's a really good win. Remember how helpless you felt last year. Diego Pavia all over the place. Felt like 3 of them were on the field. They popped him some yesterday. They made him confused. They made him look mortal yesterday. Not something they could do last year. So that's what giving someone your full attention will do. I think this offense still has a little different gear. I am very high on Alabama because they were my national championship pick. So I badly need to be right. So I'm wish casting a lot of this. But I did hear DeBoer in the postgame kind of say the same thing. He said, there's still some stuff we need to click on offense. Like, there's still a different gear. I actually agree with him. Before I heard him say that, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, hey, ground game finally showed up. The audacity of Alabama to have a 100-plus yard running back in SEC play. You want a paper popper of a stat? Jan Miller had over 100 yards on the ground yesterday. That's the first Alabama running back to top 100 yards in SEC play since 2023. Jace McClellan, I think, did it against Tennessee. They didn't have one do it last year. They did not have a tailback rush for over 100 yards in a single conference game last year. So the drought has ended there. The penalty drought is ending. The running for 100 yards drought is ending. I just think the offense is obviously trending upwards pretty drastically. Ty Simpson has found himself. But again, it's not like he's played 3 years of this caliber football. It's a few weeks. We've seen a few weeks of it. We've seen Jan Miller back for now just the second week from injury. Guys like Latsier Brooks, guys like Rico Scott, guys even like Isaiah Horton, who they brought in from elsewhere. A lot of that stuff just feels like it's still gelling, which means I think they still got a lot of upward mobility, and they're already a really, really good offense. Not to mention you've got what I would call like the Proctor trailer version of the offense. 74 is just getting a touch or two every game now. I'll keep my mouth shut on that. I'm not surprised that they've given the ball to Caden Proctor. That's what I'll say. In having observed Alabama practice, I'm not surprised that 74 has gotten the ball. I've been there in the summer, and I've watched him work out. Proctor just happens to be 6'8", 360. I wish you could just watch him run. I mean, you've seen him run a little bit, but see, the thing that happens to a viewer of a football game is your mind, your eyes get calibrated to the game. So your mind and your eyes get calibrated to thinking, oh, the wide receivers are faster than the running backs are faster than the tight ends are faster than the linemen. What you don't realize is the linemen are faster than you. Because you go and sit behind a desk all day, and you played JV baseball 10 years ago, and you still think you're an athlete. And maybe you are. I'm just telling you, there are guys who outweigh you times 2 on some of these teams that would flat out smoke you in a foot race. Proctor's one of them. He just happens to weigh 360 pounds. So I've watched them work out before, and I've watched him do stuff that guys that big aren't supposed to be able to do. And they looked at it and said, wait a second, this is more than a novelty act. Like, he's a weapon for us. Let's use him conditionally. And they have the past couple of weeks. And I don't necessarily think that's just something they broke out once to laugh at and, all right, that's done now. That's not going anywhere. They're going to do that several more times this year. So Vanderbilt played a solid game here. This is what happens, okay? When you have people's attention and you go into their building and they are more talented than you, this is the result you get sometimes. They have a bye now. And then LSU comes into Nashville in 2 weeks. LSU will be off a game, I think, against South Carolina. They're a game script team. It's very important for them to get a lead. I don't like them having to throw from behind to catch up. And they had the lead the whole year. And they had the lead in this game for a little while, but they weren't able to hold on to it. But they have now one conference loss. Bama is undefeated in SEC play. Their loss was against Florida State. It's an ACC team. Bama goes on the road this week. We will be at the game. It's at Missouri. The line is 3.5. As of today, Alabama is the significant favorite at FanDuel. I hadn't seen these odds today. They are the significant favorite to win the SEC. Well, I say significant. They're plus 200. Georgia and Ole Miss are tied at plus 600. Those numbers have fluctuated all year. So, good on Bama. It feels like the Georgia win, and then you got the Vandy win. This week's game is the one I circled after the Georgia game. I had no doubt they'd be up for Vandy. This is now a third week that you got to be up. Missouri's coming off a bye, and you got to go into their building. You get no breaks. Oh, by the way, your reward after that is you get Tennessee. If you make it through all that, you're going to go to South Carolina, I think, the next week. So, again, just life in the SEC. Some more takeaways that I had from Week 6. Texas A&M kind of low-key smothered Mississippi State. And it was bad enough where Brandon Walker was texting me during the game. That's how bad it was. Complete game from A&M. Padlock stat, you outrushed someone 299 to 77, you probably won the game. 4 sacks, 9 more tackles for loss. They just wrecked teams. A&M has a bunch of ways to win games. People are going to doubt them because of the whole A&M can't do this and do that thing. This is one of the best teams in the country. They play Florida this week. It's going to be an incredible game. But look at what their stars are doing. Reuben Owens, 21 carries, 142 yards. Mario Craver touched the ball 10 times, 115 yards and a touchdown. Casey Concepcion, half a dozen of them, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. If you want me to nitpick, I can. Mike Elko leans on us to doubt his team. He depends on us for that. He loves a gloomy media. They're still 123rd in penalties. We got to get that cleaned up. Other than that, things are great. Texas Tech is rolling. Texas Tech beat Houston 35-11. They've won every game, but this is a paper popper. Texas Tech's won every game by 24 or more. In a league that has been known for its competitive balance and parity, is anyone going to even provide so much as a speed bump for Texas Tech? They're the number 2 scoring offense in the country. They're the number 4 scoring defense in the country. I know most of you haven't watched them. I know you haven't. And you're not taking them seriously because they're a Big 12 team. And, oh, wow, cute, the best of the Big 12. Great. There's some really good players in AA. Then they get called up to the majors. Guys, that is not what's happening here. What's happening here is a lot of players who would start and have started in the Power 2 transferred to Texas Tech, and they're a very good team, and they're a very dangerous team, and they are not a team that merely hopes to get to the playoff. They are a team you're not going to want to play if they get there. So that's a long way away. I'm just trying to provide the backdrop. This is not your normal Big 12 situation. It's not. They got something brewing out there in Lubbock. And I use that phraseology because I know it fits the hype videos they want to make. So something is brewing in Lubbock, Texas. They play Kansas Saturday. Watch them. Just watch them. It'll jump off the screen to you. There's a major gap, as you can see, in the odds to win the Big 12. Texas Tech plus 100. Arizona State is next up. I think they play Utah this week. Ohio State is such a boring team to watch for the best of reasons right now. If you're not an Ohio State fan, I ask, how much of Ohio State have you watched since Texas? Have you watched them? I guarantee you a lot of you haven't even watched them because they're so dominant. I forgot we wrote this down. This is cruel, so I'll go through it quickly. They won 42-3 against Minnesota. Just a body bagging. This is the Minnesota drive chart. Earmuffs, kids. Field goal. Good. I forgot they scored in the opening drive. Okay, well, it's downhill from there. Field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out. Turnover on downs, 3 and out. Punt. Brief trip to the locker room. We're back out. 3 and out, 3 and out. Missed field goal. Punt. It's over. Go home. Night game at the Shoe. Is that the first one since the Tennessee game? I think so. Yeah, it turns out Ohio State's pretty lethal at home at night. Imagine that. Julian Sayin he's got such a blessed situation right now. He's playing for one of, if not the best teams in the country, and he gets to ease his way in because he knows that the other side of the ball is not going to give up more than like 10 or 14 points max. So 23 of 27 for 326 and 3 scores is more than enough. And they got the number 1 scoring defense in the country right now. They're good. They're not going anywhere. My question is, how often are they going to get pushed? Like, is it going to be one of those situations where we get to the end of the year or we get to the Big Ten championship game and Ohio State hasn't had parts of their team challenged all year? Like, I'm asking that. We'll see. Virginia's there. They beat Louisville 30-27 in overtime. Virginia's still there. The box score is lying to you. This was a great game. It could have been a Fort Chali Classic. Virginia yesterday, they got outgained 383-237. Irrelevant. First downs, they got outgained 25-14. Irrelevant. It's irrelevant because they scored 2 defensive touchdowns. And they're now 3-0 in ACC play because they do this thing where sometimes they play teams from their conference over there, but they don't count as a conference game. Again, don't ask me. When I'm commissioner, we're outlawing that practice. But the schedule gazers are out. Do we have Virginia? Wow, we got Virginia's schedule. So I'm gonna tell you, if you're listening on podcast, there are not high hurdles left on the schedule. They got Washington State. North Carolina is just a wet bag of trash right now. They go to Cal. That's a cross-country trip. That's about what Cal is right now. They got Wake Forest, who we bet on yesterday and won money on. They go to Duke, Virginia Tech. So again, this is not, we can't be doing this because as soon as we talked about this with Cal, they got shut out by San Diego State. So we're not pretending Virginia is elite. What we are doing is saying every one of their games remaining is winnable. And as a result, they have the third best odds to win the conference right now. They're a distant third behind Miami and to a lesser extent Georgia Tech. But did you ever think you'd check out the ACC odds at the midpoint of the season and see Virginia with infinitely better numbers than Clemson? No, me either. Moving on, tough day for Iowa State yesterday, but I'll take 11-1. That's fine. They fell to Cincinnati 38-30. They were beat to death. I think they were down 2 corners. A wide receiver went down. Is this excuse making? Of course it is. Yes, of course it is. But good on Cincinnati because this was a 31-7 game, and then good on Iowa State for fighting back and making it a one-possession game. But the number 2 spot in the Big 12 is wide open. Like right now, Texas Tech's the clear number 1. It could be Arizona State. It could be Cincy. It could be Utah. Brigham Young's undefeated. It could be TCU. Iowa State is there in that little clump of teams. It could be anybody. And lastly, for a very specific reason, North Carolina got drug all over their home field yesterday. North Carolina got splattered all over Chapel Hill. Clemson beat them 38-10, and that's only because Dabo took pity on Bill Belichick at halftime, because this was 35-3 at the half. You got to be careful with Clemson. I don't care about this game. There was not even the faintest hint of a pushback from North Carolina here. And there may not be when they play Boston College, a team that's completely lost its way. I am not about to allow myself to get fooled into thinking Clemson has figured things out. You can prove that once you play better competition, which you will. Because eventually you'll play SMU, you'll play at Louisville, you'll play FSU, you'll play South Carolina. No, I'm not doing that again. We're not doing the thing where you just beat the unranked teams and then fool everyone into thinking you're back and then you're not back. Nope, we're not doing that again. You got a long way to go to prove you're back. But man, North Carolina is a disaster. I know Mac Brown fairly well. Mac Brown is one of the best human beings walking this planet. And he's got a heart of gold. But even I have to believe that Mac Brown was somewhere yesterday in a very comfy recliner, cashing a massive buyout check with a smirk on his face, knowing good and well he could do infinitely better in 2025 at North Carolina than Bill Belichick can and will. And they paid him to go away. The reason I speak so emphatically is because a blind man could have seen that this was not going to work out. And you are getting fleeced. And who knows, maybe money's not a real thing to North Carolina, but you're paying $10 million of it. In this economy, paying Bill Belichick to just, I don't know, kind of mess around on your dime, on your time. That I don't know. I thought North Carolina was a prouder program than that. The AP is out. Before we jet on out of here, the AP is out. And by the way, we got like 12 million, or not 12 million, that would be a record, but about 12,000 watching live right now. Again, if you're new here, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you being here. It's America's college football show, unofficially. All we ask that you do is subscribe to the channel, because that's how we keep the channel the way it is. It's college football all year. Imagine that. The AP poll is out, generated by Flex Power, but Flex Power does not vote in this, and I can tell, because there is some exposure happening in the AP this week. Now, I'll tell you exactly what I mean. So producer Jesse and director Bradley are showing you the AP on the screen right now. Florida State is 25th. USF is there now, 24th. They're back. Memphis is 23rd. Iowa State dropped to 22. Arizona State's at 21. Now, I want to tell you what 20 through 16 is, and then I'm going to see if you're picking up on something. Vandy is at 20, which is pathetic, but I'll talk about it in a second. Virginia's 19. Brigham Young, undefeated, is at 18. Illinois is at 17. Notre Dame is 16. Do you notice something here? Do you notice we haven't named a couple of names here? Where is Texas? Where is Penn State? Oh, Josh, they lost yesterday. I know they lost, but they weren't 10th and 12th. They weren't 18th and 22nd. No, last week, Texas was 9th. Penn State was 7th. They were top 10 teams. Now, of course, anybody who watches the games knows that Texas and Penn State had no business being top 10 last week. It was stupid last week. Neither of them, combined, had a single win over a Power 4 team last week. But because of that brand, they were in the top 10. And now they lost a game. Each of them lost yesterday. And you're telling me that's enough to knock them out completely. What you did is you lied, one way or the other. Either you lied by putting them in the top 10 last week where they had no business being, or you're lying with how far you just dropped them, especially with Texas. Like you're telling me Texas was a top 10 team in your mind last week, but they lost by one possession on the road to Florida, and that's enough to drop them all the way out? No, what you're telling me is you know good and well they actually weren't even a top 10 team last week. But because you had to save face, because you had them ranked high in the preseason, even though we got like half a dozen games under our belt, we still got to acknowledge what we thought in the preseason. You just had to cling one more week, didn't you? You made fools of yourselves. It's not Texas's fault. Texas is just being who they've been the whole year. I wouldn't say Penn State's been what they were yesterday the whole year, but they hadn't been a top 10 team. You got exposed. A lot of you exposed yourselves here. Michigan at 15, okay. Missouri's at 14. Why are they that low? Why are all these one-loss SEC teams above Missouri? Is it because of body of work? Because you're all the same fools that had Penn State and Texas top 10 with no quality wins last week, right? So don't tell me body of work. Just say the word hypocrisy. Just say it. Just say fraudulent. Just say it. Everyone knows it is. Everyone knows your ballot is anyway. So Missouri's down there. Now, of course, they get their shot this week. I'm not upset that they don't have a shot to move up. I'm upset that the default position is Missouri has to prove it, whereas Texas and Penn State had continued to prove they didn't belong, but had to both suffer second losses before they got dropped beneath where Missouri is now. Georgia Tech's 13th, Tennessee 12, LSU 11. That pack of one-loss SEC teams ahead of Georgia Tech, ahead of Missouri. Just amazing. Just amazing. Sound like Cannell. Georgia's 10th. Tell me something here. Texas Tech is 9th and Bama's 8th. Why is Alabama ahead of Texas Tech? Well, they've got better wins. Yeah, they do. Again, you've negated the entire ability to talk about body of work and quality of wins because of where you had Texas and Penn State until this week. But Texas Tech's beaten everyone they've played by 24 or more. They went into Utah and destroyed them. Houston was undefeated coming into yesterday. They destroyed them. They suffocated them. Texas Tech sitting there 9, huh? And Bama, with a loss, is above them at 8. It's just fascinating. Indiana's at 7. Okay, they're going to play Oregon this week. 7 versus 3, according to the AP. We'll see what the commissioner's poll says Thursday. OU is at 6. A lot of people have been bent out of shape because John Mateer's out, and they thought the AP should drop Oklahoma because of their quarterback being hurt. The AP poll is not a projection. It's not supposed to be. The AP poll is not what you think teams will end up doing. It's not supposed to be. It is strictly you being judged based off your resume to this point, is it not? Or did I misread the criteria? It doesn't matter if John Mateer quit football. Okay, if he did, Oklahoma will probably go on to lose games, and then their rankings should reflect that accordingly. It shouldn't preemptively reflect it. And by the way, he hasn't quit. No need to freak out. Just got a little issue. If you don't believe me, a surgeon's been very, very present on message boards talking about it. But OU's right where they should be. A&M's a top 5 team. Ole Miss, top 5 team. How about us getting to week 7 and me telling you in August, by week 7, there will be 2 SEC teams in the top 5. Okay, Texas and Georgia, okay. No. No, one of them's from Texas. In fact, there are 2 teams in the top 10 from Texas. Neither of them have that Longhorn logo. No, it's going to be Ole Miss, the highest-ranked SEC team, and Texas A&M. I told you it's going to be a bloodbath in the SEC this year. Oregon's number 3. Miami's number 2. Ohio State is number 1. What was that, Jesse? Oh, well, so Vanderbilt at 20 is a situation, a little AP situation. I ask you, do you think they're right at 20? Do you think Vanderbilt is properly ranked? I don't. I mean, I'm asking because, like, sometimes I say stuff about the AP, and then a lot of people say, oh, no, they're right. I don't know that about Vandy. So Vandy, kind of the same way as Missouri, kind of the same way as Georgia Tech. It's that stench that someone's where they shouldn't be. Like Vanderbilt was always where they shouldn't be in the AP's eyes. Vanderbilt was always kind of trespassing where the big boys are supposed to be. Vandy's not supposed to be. Vandy is who the big boys beat to prop up their resume. And Vanderbilt kept having this audacity to win. And so the AP reluctantly, just like included them. And then as soon as they lose to a team that you're telling me is the number 8 team in the country, in their building, they're down at 20. And what's funny is Vandy with a loss is down here at 20, but with quality wins. I mean, Vandy went on the road and smoked Virginia Tech. Vandy went on the road and handled South Carolina handedly. It's redundant. And my question is, all right, Vandy does that, but then once they lose, they get dropped. Do you remember, again, I keep going to the same 2 teams because it shows the hypocrisy. Do you remember Penn State and Texas sitting there last week and sitting there with no quality wins, and the only good teams they had played they lost to, kind of like Vandy. But Vandy's got way better wins even now than those 2 had last week. But you know what? Vandy's got that V logo, man. If you want to go old school, they got that star in their logo, and so we got to drop them. And thank goodness, man, it took long enough. I imagine smiles on half of the ballots as they're being filled out. But did you see this Brett McMurphy tweet? Because this kind of encapsulates how insane this has been so far. Preseason AP top 10 rankings. Texas was number 1. They are not ranked. Penn State was number 2. They are not ranked. Clemson was number 4. They are not ranked. 3 of the top 5 in the preseason. In fact, 3 of the top 4 in the preseason AP ballot no longer ranked. Now, the haters, and I am not a defender of the AP, haters of preseason polls will take this as ammunition. And they'll say, see, that's why we shouldn't have preseason rankings. No, I don't see. I see the AP's been really stubborn in taking so long to drop teams down when they prove to be overrated. But no, I don't see any reason not to have preseason rankings. Preseason rankings are very fun. Preseason rankings are how you pass the time. Preseason rankings, when you're at your family reunion and Aunt Gretchen is talking about stuff you have no interest in, that's when you go down to the dock with Uncle Jimmy and you talk about preseason rankings to pass the time until it's time to go home. Preseason rankings are a great thing, as long as you're not married to them. Preseason rankings should be written in light pencil. Then when the season starts, we realize one game is worth more than 6 months of me talking. The crime the AP commits is they really believe what they thought in July carries a ton of weight. I don't even think that. And I've forgotten more about this stuff than a lot of you know. So I know good and well you shouldn't be thinking that. That sounded a little douchey. I take that back. Like a quarter of you, not half of you. No, I don't see that. I don't see it that way. I like preseason rankings. I just don't like when people won't come off of them. Right now, odds that you can actually bet, kind of rankings in a way that you can actually bet are over at FanDuel. FanDuel hated to see us coming and loved to watch us leaving yesterday. We cleaned them out. I hit up FanDuel. I said, go talk to the rest of your money in your vault and tell it we will be together soon. Because that's how confident I felt after we went like 5 or 6-0 to start the day. I think we went 9-3 yesterday or 8-3. And that's with Bama just screwing us with the backdoor cover. But I digress, because West Virginia, they kind of balanced that out earlier in the week. But FanDuel, the exclusive odds provider of the show, you can go over there right now. New signups are finding this out every week. You go there, FanDuel.com/Josh Pate. Bet $5 on anything. I would say that it's a sure thing, but it's not a sure thing because someone probably bet $5 on Penn State money line yesterday trying to get the 300 in bonus bets, and you lost. And to you, I'm sorry, it was only $5. That's the best I can do for you. If you think you losing $5 sucks, talk to a Penn State fan today. Okay? You don't need $5. You already have $5. They needed that win, and they didn't get it. FanDuel.com/Josh Pate. New signups. If you bet 5 and you hit, you get 300 in bonus bets. Best I can do. No, it's not. Here's 2 best bets to start this week. Will we go undefeated? I want an undefeated week. At some point in this year, I want to go undefeated. Nebraska -4.5. All right, we bet against them yesterday, and we covered. It's time to ride Nebraska -4.5. They're playing Maryland, a team we also bet on yesterday and hit on. So we got a good read on both of these teams. Nebraska's covering 4.5 this week. Northern Illinois, +1.5. Again, Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan are 2 teams the model always has a really good read on. So when they play each other, we really trust our number. And we think the wrong team is favored in this game to start the week. So we'll take Northern Illinois +1.5, Nebraska -4.5. The under is going to hit. An hour-and-a-half show. The under hit by 12 minutes. Wow. Whom's to thunk it? It ain't under till it's over, as Meemaw used to say. But it's over. It's finished. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll be back here Tuesday, full preview show for Week 7. We'll have the JP poll. We'll have a whole lot to talk about, man. I got a feeling it's going to be a very conversational week around college football. Until then, for Director Bradley, for Producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. Have a great start to your week, and God bless.